today we're going to talk about company culture. That's a huge buzzword. Culture. It's a huge buzzword for businesses, because I took the slide in here and I took it out so I can say it. Company culture is everything. One of the most terrifying things you can hear, especially if you're interviewing with a place, is to hear somebody say, you might ask a question in an interview and say, well, what's your culture like? And they say, we don't really have one. You have a culture, and that scares me that you don't know what it is.
Yeah, the fact that you say you don't have a culture means that's your culture. And what we have learned through reading of books and researching other companies is that the companies that are intentional about their culture are the ones that are seeing more success than the ones that aren't. It used to be that you could have a boss and he kind of was the culture. Everything kind of revolved around the personality and the direction that the head guy took, and everybody kind of fell in line. It's not that way anymore. With all of the different directions that we have to go, you can't be single-minded and be successful in business. And so you have to intentionally set up what it is. How do we want this environment to be? What is our focus and such? And so today we're going to give you some definitions and some practical guides as to how to affect your own culture. And it can be, if you're a company of one, guess what? You're still going to have a culture. You're still going to have a set of priorities and things that guide you. And so we want to address all of those.
So the stereotypical slide with the definition of culture. I was surprised there were 5 definitions for culture, but here we are. It is a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. So right there, that to me says a mission statement, which we'll talk about in a little while. That's kind of what a mission statement is. And maybe you have one, maybe you don't, but again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Culture kind of came into the zeitgeist, if you will, about when, thanks to companies like Google and this guy.
Anybody know him? You got a banner of him back there.
But that, Zappos, that their entire model of a business is based around culture. You think it's a simple, you think it'd be a simple company. We sell shoes at a lower rate than everybody else and ship them to you, and then if you don't like it, you ship them back free. It's a fairly simple business model, but it's simple because he's made it simple. And their culture is one based around fun and relaxed environment and everybody getting along and everybody doing their job.
Yeah, has anybody ever read Tony's book, Delivering Happiness? I encourage you, if you haven't and you don't understand this whole culture thing, to read it. The first half of the book talks about how Zappos became, basically the number one retailer of shoes on the planet, and then they got bought out by Amazon for $1 gazillion. But the second half of it is, how did we get where we are? What did we do? What are some of the focuses? Nobody will question Zappos' commitment to customer service, but what you don't understand is that it permeates everything that they do. It is the focal point of everything they do. They give their people the power to make huge decisions on behalf of the customer that, a lot of business would say, you're just a CSR, a customer service person on the phone. You need to ask a supervisor. No, they don't do that. They don't time their customer service representatives on the phone. Matter of fact, they encourage them to stay on longer because they know that if you're sitting there listening and conversing with somebody, you're building a relationship, and that's going to pay dividends in the long run. There's several stories about customer service reps spending an hour on the phone that never sold the first shoe to the person. But it started with him, but it really, you could go to any team member of Zappos and they'll tell you the same thing. What is it about? We deliver shoes, we deliver customer service, we deliver an experience. And they're proud to do that. They're engaged to do that. And like I said, if you haven't read the book, I would encourage you to do so. I'd give you my copy, but it's on my iPad. So, Delivering Happiness. They actually, when he started Zappos, just a side note, they bought this building that was above a movie theater. The bottom floor was the movie theater, and then it had 3 floors up. And this was in the 90s. So 2 of the floors, first floor was for business. The second floor was residences for the team members. He figured if they were close, if we could keep them close and they would interact, and it'd be more than just work. It would be a lifestyle. And the third floor was wide open, and they would have rave parties. Does anybody remember what raves were? It's still kind of going. That was a big 90s thing. And that's what he said. He said, what we learned was that if people are engaged, if they get each other, you get more out of them. Not so much to manipulate, but to really, when people enjoy what they do, they perform far better. They work far harder. Why? Because they get it, they understand it, they appreciate it, and it really causes great engagement. And Tony learned that early on. Zappos struggled for a lot of years. He had to put millions upon millions of dollars in it just to make payroll. But he knew that if they stayed down this path over the long haul, he took a long-term approach, that they would see success. And when they got bought out by Amazon, it was like one of the biggest deals in online retailing ever.
And some of the most forward-thinking companies embrace that attitude when it comes to company culture, like Google, and even locally, Moonbot. I've had the pleasure of touring their facility, and it made me feel like I was in some sort of advanced California, Silicon Valley atmosphere. Just the attitude of having team members engage with each other, even if they're in separate offices across the building from each other, they Skype constantly with each other. And so they always have a constant dialogue going with their other team members. And that's just kind of a revolutionary concept that was brought on by companies like Google, Zappos, Yahoo, things like that.
And the proof's in the pudding. Look what Moonbot's accomplished. Now, I'm not saying that every company has to be like Moonbot and have everybody Skyping or whatever, but what you learn is you've got to be intentional. You've got to understand what you want to do and then make it happen.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the makeup of a culture. Your management, like Dave said, it used to be one person. Culture came from the top down. And that's still somewhat relevant, but there are more factors at play, like your employees. Every individual we value, and as a culture, we value the individual now. And so everybody has their individuality, and they bring that with them into a company. And that's something you have to account for. The environment of the business. Maybe it's a high-stress business. Maybe you work in a law firm. Maybe you work in a hospital. Maybe you, like us, work in a laid-back environment where we put out publications, where you only have really like 2 days a month that are really stressful. And then it comes down to your values and mission. If you don't know that, then you don't know what your culture can be. If you don't know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, you won't have any sort of identifiable culture.
I got thinking about the word environment. You never realize what impact small decisions make until later on down the road. You may never know personally, but when we built our building in Bossier City back in 2000 and I moved in, I came from an office where if you didn't put your name on your food in the refrigerator, chances are it wouldn't be there when you went to go to lunch. I mean, it was that kind of environment. People were just not respectful. And so I made the conscious decision, although I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, that I would never lock my doors. I have locks on my office doors, but I would never lock my doors. I said, you know what? If I can't trust the people that I work with to stay out of my stuff, then I have a hiring problem. So I did it. I mean, it was 2000, and you kind of filed it away, and that's just kind of the way it was. Well, Jerry moved in with us back in, it's just been right at a year, and I was really kind of surprised. He and I were on a podcast, I think 2 weeks ago, and he says, one of the things I noticed about you is that you don't close your office doors. He says, I've heard of open door policies, but you really put meat to it. He says, I can come in off hours and your doors are open. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if I can't trust the people around me. He says, yeah, but that speaks loudly to the people that work around you. And I didn't realize it at the time. And this is before we had the buzzword of culture. but that's what it is. What you do as a leader and the decisions you make that potentially affect those around you, you're sending messages all the time. And so management sets the tone for what the culture is going to be.
One statistic that I found that was a little alarming was that 80% of companies do not intentionally craft their company culture. That statistic is a little dated. I'm sure it's gone down now, but I would be surprised if I would figure in the 60-40.
It's hard. It is hard to continually reinforce your culture. It's such an intentional thing. It's like a marriage. You're in the dating process and you're intentional, man. You are sending flowers, you're calling her on the phone, you can't wait to see her. It's all that, and then you get the ring on the finger, the vows in front of the preacher, and all that kind of goes away. Wow, well, you've accomplished what you wanted to accomplish, and now you've moved on to life. But then 5-10 years down the road, you're wondering why you don't even know that person that you're sharing a bed with anymore. It's because you weren't intentional. You had to be as intentional after the vows as you were before the vows to continually build your relationship together. And we can say, how many remember when mission statements were the big thing? Every company had to have a mission statement. But how many actually lived up to those mission statements? How many fashioned their policy around the mission statement? How many even know what it is 20 years later after they did it in 1984?
Mission statements went away and then now they're back.
Right. That's what we're saying, is that it's more than just to say, recognizing, okay, I want my company to look like this, or I want my people to feel like this when they work for me. What are you doing each and every day to reinforce that?
So you have a culture. Is it good or is it bad? We talk about companies that have cultures and things. This really isn't a company, but this CoHab is based around culture, interaction, networking. Co-solve to me is the epitome of what CoHab is all about. That's distilled CoHab to me. This is a living, breathing organism for culture.
If management or leadership is intentional and they're consistently reinforcing that culture, then the team members become the police force. It's like if you instill a no gossip policy in your business, we're not going to talk about anybody who cannot handle the problem. In other words, if you have a problem with IT, don't go tell the receptionist about it. You can tell somebody in IT or work it up the chain of command, but don't go sideways or down with the conversation. And you establish that, and then you enforce it as management by saying, if you catch somebody doing it, you call them into your office, you say, this is your one chance. You fire somebody who's an habitual offender of the anti-gossip policy. What will happen is, over time, your other team members, if they hear it, will say, look, we don't do that here. And if you want to keep your job, trust me, you don't want to do that. That's how it is, because once people understand and they've got the buy-in on it, they're going to help you maintain it because they want to be a part of it. That's the whole reason they came, is they want to be a part of your culture. And the thing is, what we have learned too is lack of information will breed a bad culture. Yes. Because people, when they don't know, they start filling in the blanks themselves.
And millennials, the upcoming workforce, hate it.
Yeah.
They hate not being told. I mean, that was one of I agree with that 100%. I hate not knowing what the company's doing. If you can't tell me, just say, I can't tell you.
Do y'all have some good examples of, because this is one that I've been seeing in CoHab all the time, is the different corporate cultures with the different age brackets. I think we've got the range here. How do you guys see that?
One of the things that we've learned, and
like millennials, Generation X.
It's an information problem. It's not an inherent culture problem. What happens is that everybody makes assumptions about everybody else. Old people make assumptions, non-millennials make assumptions about millennials. I'm old people too, so I'm okay with that. But they make assumptions saying they're lazy, they don't care about appearance, they don't care about anything. They're very self-absorbed. It's all about me. Everybody got a trophy, so that's it. And then the millennials make the assumptions about the non-millennials that they're out of touch. They don't really know how the world works now. They're stuck in their own habits. But what we've learned through discussion, open discussion among our age groups, is really and truly, they're not that far apart. And they have the same goal. It's just how they get there seems to be where the differences lie. And so when we start concentrating on the similarities, and hey, don't you want this company to be successful? Yes. Well, and what we found is like the millennial will listen to the non-millennial about, look, you're going to be judged when you go out there, so it's important that you do have appearance is an issue in this circle. You know, the whole world doesn't act like you're used to it acting in your circles, and so if you're going into a different circle, you need to recognize what you're doing. And then the millennial has been able to talk to the non-millennial about, hey, you can relax. It's okay. If you're not going anywhere, it doesn't matter if you got jeans on. If you're getting the job done and you're quit stressing about things that aren't worth stressing about. And it's really funny that we've had a lot of interaction in our company right along those lines, and we've all talked about it on a regular basis. And because
it's really what the online course that we're going to offer is really addresses that. Most of the people in this, the majority of the age group in this room right now, they have to come down to they're being told you have to give them, you have to meet them. Right.
Yeah.
And what I found, especially here, is you guys call the shots. We got to figure out a way to come up to you. So I'm trying to give them practical working knowledge that I've found in my own life and in other people's lives to meet you guys in the middle. And even if you don't feel like it, we'll do things that will make you go, will pull you and make you go, oh, okay. Maybe they can wear jeans most of the time at work and things like that.
And there is a culture shift in America, actually worldwide. You know, one of the things that blew me away, and this was 4 years ago, maybe 5, when Citizens National Bank, one of our major accounts, made the conscious decision to eliminate suits. And what happened was management, they got a new president, Woody Schick, and he came in and he said, look, the people we're dealing with are intimidated by people in suits. We're to serve these people. They are the reason why we even exist. And so he decided, they would wear the golf shirts with the logo and stuff. And my friend Jason Smith, who's the vice president there, had a major issue with it. It took him a while to be able to embrace that. But that's what I'm saying is that the world, the focus is shifting. The culture of the world is shifting. And it's very difficult for somebody who's rooted in a certain idea of this is the way it's supposed to be. And so the more information we can give, even if you're not in a position of authority, but you have the ear of the leader, that we can give them information to say, look, this is why, and you will see more success if you engage in this and just start planting those seeds. You'll be able to see some real positives take place.
What's interesting is in our business in particular, Dave is the third youngest person in our office. I'm the second, and we have one reporter who's 2 years younger than me, and that's it. So we still, when we talk about you have to account for management style and technology especially, you have to have things in place that suit us, but also suit people that don't like computers or don't get computers or don't want to get computers. So there's still a lot of paper floating around the office, as where a paper company should be. So, but that's something that you have to account for in your culture. You have to take stock of the people working for you and say, okay, Jerry is 35, isn't that right? Yeah, Jerry's the old guy. So we got to account, so we need this, and this for him, but Sean's the young guy. We need this, and this for him. And you got to figure out a way to make it happen.
But you print it out and hand it to Jerry. You put it in the Dropbox for Sean.
Thank you. Okay. First step number 1 is you got to decide what you are. We had to decide what we were.
Yeah.
We're not a newspaper company anymore.
And that was a hard choice to make because we'd been a newspaper company for generations. But newspapers are not, their cheese is moving. And so we had to recognize that. We knew that information, remember, we entered the information age. The internet ushered us into the information age. So we knew what we had value, but our method of distribution, if you will, was what was being moved. And so we recognized that we were an information company.
Even biz. I mean, look below the biz logo. It took us a year to really figure that out. Those 3 points right there: inspiration, education, and information. You know, when people hear business magazine, they think news. And there's so much more you can do with that. And so we had to figure out a way to reconcile that with what we knew we needed to do. And so that, I mean, you know, we live this, but you got to figure that out for you and your team. Because if you don't know what you're doing as a leader, the people that work for you or work with you, they're not going to know.
Culture is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. Different companies will have a different culture. I mention Dave Ramsey all the time, but his company culture is go-getters. It is high productivity, high results, just, throttle to the floor 24/7. That may not work for what you're trying to do. That may not work within your team, but you have to identify what you are. That way you can make everything fit.
And it's okay if you don't want to be suit and tie, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Maybe that doesn't work for you guys. It doesn't work for Moonbot. People show up in whatever they want to wear that day, as long as it's not scandalous. They usually hang around the office for a good hour talking to the person about the projects they're working on, because in their culture, the person that they're talking to, who may not have anything to do with what they're working on, will go, well, I can't get past this. We'll have you try this. And then that solves their problem. And that works for them. In a normal business, that doesn't happen. In a normal business, everybody comes in, goes to their cubicle, or goes out and hits the road and starts selling, or whatever it is. And they do their own thing, and then they meet up at lunch, or they meet up after work, or they meet up on a mandatory fun night. And if that works for you and that works for your business, great. But it doesn't have to. Don't be scared to be different.
And that's what's cool. On the flip side, if your business is the type that you're dealing with the public, you are charging a certain level for the service. I'll give you an example. If you were to go to Superior Steakhouse and your waiter showed up in shorts and flip-flops, it wouldn't work for you, right? That business would go down the tubes pretty fast, because their culture is a certain level. And so everything falls in line with that level. Whether you're a millennial or a baby boomer or whatever, everybody understands that we're at a certain level. And by being at a certain level, we have to appear, we have to serve in a certain way. So again, not every culture is the same. And that's by design, because not every business is the same, not every customer is the same. You have to understand who you're dealing with.
And finally, devise a mission statement. You figured out who you are, who works with you, who's on your team. You know what type of environment you need. Does it need traditional or non-traditional? Now distill it down into a paragraph length, 2 sentences. Ours is like a paragraph, but it's 1 sentence.
It should be something simple enough that everybody in your operation can tell you what it means. If it's so convoluted that you get lost in the verbiage, throw it away. The very first thing you should do when you're hiring somebody is hand them that. And you say, is this a kind of place you want to work? Or can you line up with this? Because your mission statement should be defined by your core values, should be defined by what you're wanting to accomplish, all of those things. And if they don't get that, then they're not the right hire.
And where did you get the idea to put the mission statement on everybody's desk?
I just came up with that.
Yeah, we got little frames with ours on it. And so I always say, if I trust you to make the right decision as long as it coincides with this. Don't sell advertising to a strip club. I want their dollars, just like I want everybody's dollars, but it doesn't fit. And our breeders are not going to be happy with that.
Two of the phrase that resonates. We have this long mission statement, but if there was 5 words that, and I may have miscounted because it's Friday, but there are 5 words that summed up our mission statement. It's this: serving God in our community. serving God in our community. And that permeates everything that we do. That helps us make our decision of, yes, we're going to that, no, we're not going to that, yes, we're going to participate in that, no, we're not going to participate in that. And it just really clarifies, and everybody in the building knows it, and our readers know that. It's on our front page. It's in our lobby. We have a plaque with our entire mission statement right behind the counter. And a lot of people will read it and go, wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Or they may think, oh, you never know, because people get on both sides of that aisle when you put the word God and stuff. But I'm not going to, but at least they know where we stand. They know exactly what kind of person you are. They know exactly what kind of company you are. They know where you stand on things. And it really clarifies a lot, not only for your team members, but for the community at large. And our entire culture is built around serving God in our community, serving God in our community. And our reporters will make suggestions based upon that statement. Our advertising people will go see clients or come up with sales ideas based upon those statements. And so it makes a lot of sense and really helps who we are.
Who here has not gotten a book yet? Has everybody got a book? You haven't gotten a book? You haven't gotten a book? Oh, okay. You want to rock, paper, scissors for it? It's what it is it's a little behind, but Zappos puts out a culture book every year.
The culture book is not written by Zappos. It's written by Zappos team members. Every year they submit answers to the question, what is the culture here? What defines the culture here? And management uses this to see if they're on track with what they're wanting to do, but they also provide copies to every team member so they know what their counterparts think is the culture here. This one's from 2011. This was the first thing that got me thinking about company culture. I'd heard the person who was in charge of this interviewed on a podcast, and they actually sent free copies out, so it's quite possible you could get a free copy if you email Zappos. But it's really cool. It's broken down into like, what do we do through the year? See, team members asking the question, how long they've been an employee and such. The Zappos culture means many things to me, but mostly it inspires me to be the best I can be and to continue to contribute and share our culture with others.
It's very inspiring.
Yes, and that's from the team members. You want feedback? You want to take a risk? Find out what they're going to write. Ask them to write what they think your culture is, and say, be honest. You're not going to get fired for it. Yeah, it was pretty wild the first time I'd heard about it. So Margie, we'll be nice to Margie.